Being disabled and having federal student loans does not automatically qualify you for your loans to be discharged under the Total and Permanent Disability Discharge Program. The Department of Education provides three sources that a borrower can utilize and provide documentation that could potentially get their student loans discharged under the Total and Permanent Disability Discharge Program. And those three sources, one of which would be through a VA determination. The other one would be through a medical professional certification. And then we have certain Social Security benefits that could make a borrower potentially eligible for their loans to be discharged under the Total and Permanent Disability Discharge Program. When you go on the student aid website and you look at the information that the Department of Education has for a borrower to what documentation will need to be provided, especially if you're receiving Social Security benefits, first and foremost, it's important to know what type of benefits that you have. You can look back on my previous video. I talk about more or less about the different types of Social Security benefits, those ones that can be garnished by the Department of Education. But for Total and Permanent Disability Discharge, the Department of Education tells you you can qualify if you're eligible for Social Security Disability Insurance, or SSDI, or Supplemental Security Income, SSI. In addition, so we know that there's more things outside of just receiving those benefits. You must provide documentation that show that one of the following is true. And I think this one of the following is extremely important because we have borrowers who will look at the Total and Permanent Disability discharge application and they're thinking that you have to have all of these factors in order for you to apply. When you only need one thing, one of these factors that the Department of Education lists in order for you to be able to apply and then also potentially qualify. So the first thing the Department of Education says is your next continuing disability review has been scheduled within 5 to 7 years from the date of your last SSA disability determination. So basically what that means is that the Social Security Administration doesn't need to see you again. They'll need to review your case for at least 5 to 7 years. From the last time that they reviewed you, you have that documentation to show 5 to 7 more years before they need to review you again. Your next continuing disability review has been scheduled at 3 years. And again, that means the Social Security Administration means that they don't need to review. They'll bring you back in 3 years to make sure that you're, that you still meet the disability requirements. And I believe this one here is extremely important. All of them are important, but this one is one where you can kind of get tripped up if you're not reading because we have multiple things being said here. So it says you have an established onset date for SSDI or SSI of at least 5 years before you apply for TPD discharge. We're going to stop there. Because if you go down to the bottom of this, it tells you what the Department of Education, what they speak about as far as your onset date. And they tell you your medical onset date refers to the official date your disability began. The Social Security Administration determines this date based on documentation in your case file. And this is so extremely important. And this is why when we're talking about applying for Total and Permanent Disability Discharge is that our medical records have to be in line with everything that is happening with us, because there's another language in this application. And this is why I just started the process of just trying to understand disability or being disabled in general because of my own disability, but it's understanding when we see language in these applications, what exactly are they saying? Because when we're talking about an onset date, and then not only that, how the Social Security Administration determines our onset date and what information that they're using to determine that. And making sure that our medical records, when we're going to the medical doctors, that not only is our doctor just continuously talking about our treatment and our diagnosis, but when we're talking about disability and applying for Total and Permanent Disability Discharge, if you're not able to get your discharge because you receive Social Security benefits, then there's the medical doctor certification. And in that, there's a part that talks about substantial gainful activity that we're going to discuss. But it's just important that our medical records are speaking to what our condition prevents us or limits us from doing. It's so extremely important that all of that information, and we have documentation to support all of that. All right, let's keep going.